surprised my husband with a romantic dinner, but overheard him telling his mom I'm boring and a dead fish in bed. I'm 32F, married to my husband Mark, 34M, for almost 5 years now. From the outside, we probably look like a stable, functional couple. We both have decent jobs, no kids yet, own a small home in a quiet neighborhood, and we've always been good at communicating. At least I thought we were. Lately, though, Mark has been distant. Not in a blatant way, but little things. He comes home later than usual. He's tired all the time. When I suggest intimacy or even a date night, there's always a reason why tonight's not great. I chalked it up to stress. He works in finance, and he's been under pressure lately. Still, I wanted to do something nice. We hadn't spent real quality time together in weeks. So, I decided to surprise him. It was a Thursday afternoon, and I wrapped up my meetings earlier than expected. I left work 2 hours early, picked up the ingredients for his favorite dinner. Pan-seared ribeye with roasted garlic mashed potatoes and his favorite bottle of Malbec. I even grabbed one of those small lava cakes he loves. My plan was to light a few candles, set the table, maybe put on a playlist we used to listen to back when we were still in the honeymoon phase. Just something simple, romantic, thoughtful. I was excited, really excited. I hadn't seen him smile genuinely in a while, and I hoped this little surprise might bring back some warmth between us. I parked in the driveway around 5 p.m. His car was already there, which was odd, since he usually gets home closer to 6. But I figured maybe he had the same idea. Come home early, surprise each other. How sweet would that be? I let myself in as quietly as I could, trying not to ruin the surprise too early. The house smelled like his cologne, like he had just walked in not long before me. I was just about to head toward the kitchen when I heard his voice coming from the office down the hall. He was on the phone, doors slightly ajar. I was going to knock and call out to him, until I heard what he was saying. I froze. It was his voice. Tired, exasperated. No, Mom, I can't talk to you about this again. I'm trying, okay? But it's hard to feel anything when you live with someone who's so boring. She's sweet, I guess, but there's just no spark. Honestly, I regret marrying her. She's like a dead fish in bed. I didn't sign up for this. My heart dropped to the floor. Every part of me went still. I didn't even breathe. I should have turned away, should have stopped listening. But I couldn't move. My entire body felt like it had been dipped in ice water. The man I married, my husband, was talking to his mother about me like I was a mistake. A burden. An obligation he regretted. And that was just the beginning. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen in the hallway like a statue. His words just kept playing on a loop inside my head, each sentence hitting harder than the last. She's like a dead fish in bed. I regret marrying her. She's boring. My throat tightened so much it physically hurt. The surprise dinner, the wine, the little cake, all of it felt like a joke now. I had been so stupidly excited just 10 minutes ago. I had walked in smiling, hopeful, thinking I could rekindle something between us. And here he was, telling his mother that I was essentially a lifeless body he shared a bed with, that our marriage was a mistake. I stepped back quietly, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I didn't want him to know I was there. Not yet. I couldn't face him while I was this raw, this humiliated. I walked back out to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and just stared at the steering wheel. What was I supposed to do with this? What do you do when a man you love calls you boring and pathetic behind your back? To his mother, no less. I didn't even cry at first. I just sat there, arms folded over my stomach, trying to process what I'd heard. I was in shock, I think. Numb. The tears came a few minutes later, quiet and sharp, falling onto my lap as I silently gasped for air. I started second-guessing everything. Was he always this unhappy? Was I really that bad in bed? That boring? That forgettable? I've always tried to be supportive. I've been patient when he had rough weeks at work. I never complained when he wanted space. I took care of things around the house without making a fuss. I thought I was being a good wife, a loving partner. Maybe I wasn't sexy or spontaneous enough. Maybe I wasn't adventurous in the bedroom, but I was there. I showed up. I loved him, and he didn't love me back. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. A part of me wanted to storm back into the house and scream at him. Another part wanted to drive away and never come back. But I did neither. I just sat there until the sun dipped below the trees and the streetlights flickered on one by one. Eventually, I wiped my face, took a deep breath, and went back inside. He was in the living room now, watching TV like nothing happened. When he saw me, he smiled and said, "Hey babe, you're home early." I smiled back, and I lied. "Yeah, just wanted to surprise you." He didn't know I'd heard everything. Not yet, but I decided in that moment, I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg or cry or demand answers. No, I was going to gather information piece by piece. Because if this marriage was going to burn to the ground, I was going to make damn sure he didn't walk away looking like the victim. For the next few days, I went through the motions like nothing had changed. I cooked dinner. I folded laundry. I kissed him goodnight. I even let him think I hadn't noticed that he barely touched me anymore. Not emotionally, not physically. I kept smiling. I played my role so well, I almost convinced myself everything was fine. But deep down, something inside me had snapped. I started observing everything through a new lens. The way he'd sigh when I asked how his day was. The way he scrolled through his phone at dinner and mumbled responses while texting someone. How he suddenly had work dinners at odd hours and came home smelling like cologne I didn't recognize. How he changed his phone password 2 weeks ago and claimed it was a company policy update. Once I started looking for the cracks, I saw them everywhere. He wasn't just distant, he was disengaged. And I no longer believed it was just burnout or stress. There was something darker underneath all of this. Something I'd been blind to because I trusted him. Because I loved him. I didn't want to believe he was cheating. I still don't know for sure. But when a man calls you a dead fish in bed to his mother and then suddenly avoids all intimacy like the plague, it doesn't take a genius to connect the dots. And his mother. God, don't even get me started on Diane. She's always had a strange grip on him. She's one of those women who sees every woman her son dates as some kind of rival. I've tried to be kind to her over the years. I really did. I bought her thoughtful birthday gifts, invited her over for holidays, even agreed to spend Christmases at her house every other year. But it was never enough. She criticized the way I dressed, the way I cooked, how I talked too softly, and once told Mark, right in front of me, that he should have married that nice ex-girlfriend from college who had real ambition. And he laughed. He brushed it off like it was just a harmless joke. But it wasn't harmless to me. Now, knowing what I know, that she's the one he vents to when he's miserable, and that he tells her things he would never say to my face. It made me feel like an outsider in my own marriage. That night, while he slept beside me, I stayed awake staring at the ceiling. I didn't cry this time. I just thought and planned. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew I wasn't going to confront him while still reeling. I needed clarity, control, proof, because if he was cheating, if he was plotting a way out, if he was throwing away everything we built, I wasn't going to let him rewrite the story and paint me as the boring wife who drove him away. No. I was going to document everything. It was a Friday evening when everything finally boiled over. I had spent the entire week paying attention, watching, listening, quietly connecting dots. I noticed how he always turned his phone screen away from me when texting. How he took his laptop into the bathroom and locked the door. How he suddenly had meetings pop up on weekends, the kind that required no calls and no distractions. I even checked our shared credit card statement. There were charges for fancy restaurants we hadn't gone to in months. A spa receipt. A hotel booking in the city for a single night with no explanation. He never said a word about any of it, but I still said nothing. I waited. Then, on that Friday, everything finally collapsed. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta and salad. When he walked in, completely distracted, he barely greeted me. I asked how work was, and he gave me the usual grunt and sat on the couch to scroll through his phone. 15 minutes later, his phone rang. It was his mom. Again, I kept stirring the sauce, pretending I wasn't listening, but I caught enough to know she was bringing up me again. I heard him sigh and say, "Mom, I told you, I'm handling it. Just don't say anything yet." That was it. That was the breaking point. I turned off the stove, walked into the living room, and calmly said, "Put her on speaker." He looked up confused. "What? Your mom? Put her on speaker. Since we're talking about our marriage, I'd love to hear her thoughts, too." He stared at me like I'd grown another head. "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about," I said. My voice was calm, deadly calm. "The phone call last week? The one where you told her you regret marrying me? That I'm a dead fish in bed? That I'm boring?" His face went pale. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "You thought I wasn't home yet," I continued. "But I heard everything. Every disgusting word." The line went quiet. Then his mother's voice came through the phone. "Well, maybe if you were a better wife, you wouldn't feel that way." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurdly predictable. Of course you'd say that. You've hated me from the start." She snapped. "I just want what's best for my son. And clearly, that's not me," I said coldly. "So let's stop pretending." I reached for the phone, ended the call myself, and tossed it on the couch. Mark still hadn't spoken. His face was red. Shame, anger, guilt, I couldn't even tell. "You have two choices, Mark," I told him. "Tell me the full truth. Now, or I'll walk out and never come back." His mouth finally moved, and what he said next changed everything. Mark stood there like a deer caught in headlights, mouth half open, eyes darting around like he was searching for the right script to follow. But there wasn't one. Not this time. The damage was already done. Finally, he sat down, rubbing his face like he was trying to physically wipe away the situation. "I didn't mean for you to hear that," he mumbled. "That's not an apology," I snapped. "That's damage control." He exhaled heavily, then looked at me like he suddenly remembered I was a real person. I was venting. I didn't mean half of what I said. "You call me boring. You said you regret marrying me. You compared me to a dead fish." Which half of that was the lie, Mark? He didn't answer, because we both knew the answer already. After a long silence, he finally spoke again. "I feel trapped." Those 3 words hit me like a punch to the gut. He continued, "We got married young. You wanted stability, I don't even know. I wanted peace. But somewhere along the line, I stopped feeling like myself. I folded my arms. And instead of talking to me, your wife, you chose to talk trash about me to your mother? She's the only one who listens," he shouted, suddenly defensive. "You don't even see me anymore." I actually laughed, sharp and bitter. "Oh, I see you just fine, Mark. I see a man who stopped trying years ago. A man who lies to his wife's face and then complains about her behind her back." He flinched. "Good." Then I hit him with the final card I'd been holding close. "You want to talk about lies? Then maybe tell me who you went to dinner with at the Winston on the 14th. Or who the spa package was for last month. Or what hotel you booked under your initials last weekend." His eyes widened. "You went through my stuff?" he asked. "Don't you dare play victim," I said. "You stopped being a husband the second you turned me into a punchline for your mommy issues." He was quiet for a long time. Then, like a man unraveling, he admitted it. "There's someone else," he whispered. My heart didn't even sink. It had already bottomed out days ago. I just nodded numb. "It's not serious," he added quickly, like that made it better. "It just happened. She makes me feel alive. And I don't," I said flatly. He looked away. That was all I needed to hear. I walked out of the living room and into our bedroom, packed a duffel bag with just the essentials: laptop, documents, wallet, clothes. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even slam the door when I left. And the saddest part, he didn't try to stop me. When I left that night, I didn't know where I was going. I ended up at my friend Rachel's apartment. She took one look at me, red eyes, blank expression, and didn't ask a single question. Just opened the door, hugged me, and said, "You can stay as long as you need." The next morning, the shock began to fade, and the rage started creeping in. I sat at her kitchen table with a cup of black coffee and did what I had to do. I called a lawyer. I pulled all my personal savings into a separate account. I canceled all shared cards I was legally allowed to. I changed my passwords. I even sent a short, polite message to Mark letting him know I was safe and that I'd be in touch through legal counsel moving forward. He didn't respond, but she did. His mother. Less than 24 hours after I left, Diane messaged me a full paragraph on Facebook. She said she understood I was emotional, but I shouldn't make any hasty decisions. She insisted that all marriages go through rough patches and that I needed to look inward and ask if I'd really been the kind of wife Mark needed. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. She could keep her twisted son and their toxic codependency. I was done. What really broke my heart, though, was how predictable it all became once I left. The carefully curated image of our perfect marriage shattered like glass. Friends reached out, some shocked, others not so much. One even admitted they'd seen Mark having lunch with a woman from his office more than once, but didn't want to cause drama. My family was furious on my behalf. My sister offered to fly in. My dad wanted to confront Mark personally. I asked him not to. This wasn't about revenge. This was about reclaiming my peace. A few weeks later, Mark finally emailed me, dry, robotic, legal. He didn't fight the separation. Didn't argue for counseling. Didn't even try to deny anything. He was the same passive man I'd seen that night. Beaten down not by me, but by the weight of his own cowardice. I let my lawyer handle everything after that. The day the divorce was finalized, I bought myself a bottle of champagne and drank it on Rachel's balcony. Not out of celebration, but out of relief. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. It's been a few months since everything went down. I've started therapy. I moved into a small apartment of my own. I'm rediscovering the version of me that doesn't shrink herself to make a man feel bigger. And no, just in case anyone's wondering, I am not boring. I'm passionate. I'm loyal. I'm thoughtful. I love someone who didn't deserve it. And I survived the fallout with my dignity intact. So if that makes me a dead fish, then I hope the next woman he dates is a damn shark.